We used to travel from school to school in the bus to Beverley, Brookton, Pingelly, and we had a little saying, we are the kids of York, we live on bread and pork. We may not win, but we never give in. We are the kids of York. And we often didn't win, but we loved going to from across the country to the sports events.
Remember we used to play sevens against the wall?
Oh, in the days that everybody played sevens. Didn't even boys played sevens, didn't they?
Yeah. Sevens was a game with, when you were good, you had 2 tennis balls and you'd throw the ball against the wall and then you'd do things like let it bounce.
But if you can imagine everybody doing it,
every bit of this brick wall space was taken up with people playing sevens.
Or the hopscotch. I mean, imagine them doing that now. No way with their...
And skipping.
Yeah,
and the hand tennis.
And we used to play footy in the back paddock to the convent school. And the nuns had a cow, and the cow frequently just had a feed. And I can remember Bobby Edwards grabbing the footy and running around like that, and he put a foot in a big heap of cow dung and zip, down he went, and all up the side of him.
One of the easiest tables to learn was your 6 times table, because, and I recall some of my fellow mates in class were not very good at mental arithmetic, but they were quite good at football. And you realise that every time you kick a goal, it is 6 points. And some of the dumbest kids at school could recite their 6 times table very easily.
I don't know whether I was trying to gain friends or what, but Dad being a doctor, he had these medical magazines. And I used to take these magazines, and at playtime we'd go behind the railway line was right next door to our classroom, and it was next to the lunch shed, you know, that little one behind the domestic science room. And we used to go between the railway track and the classroom, and we'd see all these pictures of medical procedures of places that other girls didn't know about that.
Mischievous.
I know. Oh, that was terrible.
I used to learn the violin, and I learned that at the convent. And after school, I had to go up to the convent, you see. Well, that was running the gauntlet a bit, because there was all the war on with the Catholic boys and the state school kids, you know. It was real. And if there was more of them than there was of you, well, it was look out, you'd get belted up, you see.
They hated us and we hated them.
At school, when we were young, it was always the Catholic kids who went to the Catholic school and the kids who went to the local school.
And the twain should meet.
Catholic dogs sitting on logs eating frogs, and prodding dogs or whatever it was.
Convent dogs sitting on logs eating maggots out of frogs. That was, but us being forgiving Christians didn't reply.
So there was no fights or anything?
Yeah, of course there was.
We used to fight bombardier fights. You know, you pull the bombardier out of the ground and throw them at the kids to go, and they throw it at us, because the Catholic school's just across from the state school.
There was always chanting and ribbing each other all the time.
Yeah, and sometimes it was good-natured and sometimes it wasn't all that
Quite
nice.
a bit of the time it wasn't good-natured.
But I think overall, as reflected in the wider society around Australia, there was that divide, you know, like Catholics married Catholics and Protestants and Catholics didn't seem to mix.
And it was very disapproved of to marry a Catholic if you're a Protestant.
Although I really liked a few Catholics, we all did as young kids.
And the other way, of course.
Yeah.
But then a bit later on, they used to have the high school used to have a sports day, and they had 4 factions, and we applied to go in the sports with them, make 5 factions, because we had some good runners and good whatevers. And
it wasn't until they joined us to play sport that we got to know them and realised that they were the same as us, and particularly if they could kick a football better than we could, or hit a cricket ball as well or better than us. We realised how useful and of course how good they were, and they became our friends.
The two schools really didn't mix.
No.
It really, when you look back on it, it was terrible. It was them and us.
But we were very strict in those days. You got the cane. You always went to the headmaster, and you had this cane about that long, and you either got 1, 2, 3, 4, or if you were really naughty, you got 6 on the palm of your hand.
One girl was giving me a bit of grief, and I pulled her plaits and made her cry. So I got several for that.
If we came late, we got the cane. So, you know, we used to catch the bus in, and sometimes the bus would miss us, so we'd have to walk. And it must be about 5 k's now to the school, to where the York Reserve is. And by the time we got to the school, and we would become, you know, be late, and we'd go, issued up to the principal's office, and just put your hand out, and put a hand out, and just get a smack on the, or coming late. But we knew that every time we did go late, we would go to the peppercorn tree. Me and my cousin would go to the peppercorn tree, and we'd rub our hands with the peppercorn. And by the time we got to the to school, we'd just go like this, put our hands out, because we knew we were going to get the cane for coming late. So we just go like this, okay, walk out, and it didn't hurt. See, what the peppercorn does is just deadens all the hand, because then you don't feel the sting of it.
Oh, well, at the convent, the old nuns they'd lay at you with the fists and boots, the whole lot. But the poor old darlings, they couldn't hurt you, you know, because we just used to ask for anything we ever got, you know. But they used to have these pointed sticks, they used to drive those into you. That used to hurt a bit.
The last teacher I had, Mr. Mann, he was ex-army, and he had this leather strap, and we measured it when he wasn't around, and it was a bit over 3 feet long, and it was 2 inches wide and nearly a 1/4 inch thick. And he used to have it doubled, and we got it on the calf of our legs. And you'd have a mark there for a month or more afterwards.
Well, those days, it was fairly well disciplined. You put a foot out of line, you got 6 of the best. Only had that done once, that hurt, so you behaved yourself.
What did you get it for?
Actually, it's on the school bus going home. I used to buy those mail runs in America. The horse used to do the mail run, change over, get all those books in the library and read them on the way home. Something to do. And yeah, he kept pinning me like that, and I round it, let him have one, and I got 6 of the best for it.
What did you do on the school bus?
I had fights, played gambling with marbles.
There was a hierarchy on the buses. You always had the bus prefects or bus captains, or every town had a different name for these people. Often it'd be a 9-year-old who was the oldest on the bus, but that person would be the person who was the school bus captain.
Eating any leftover play lunch on the way home and reading comics if you could get them from someone.
Hey, I'll tell you something though that no one else will tell you. We got held up with a woman with a shotgun on the bus going to school one day.
There was a crazy lady that lived, that was married to one of the local farmers, names not mentioned, and the bus driver was meant to deliver the bread, and he forgot her bread, and he had to go up to the end of the road and then come back and do a detour and then come back. And when he came back, because he hadn't dropped her bread off, she was standing there with a gun holding up the school bus.
In the middle of the street, the double-barrel shotgun. Don't stand there, stop.
And of course it was a great drama to see this woman with a gun pointing at us all. And it was a story we told for a long time afterwards. I think I'm not sure if she went to jail over that. I'm not really sure.